Howdy YouTube, thank you guys for clicking on another video. Appreciate you guys coming back and supporting the channel as always. So today we talk about another content creation idea for the channel. We've always talked about different ideas offline and off recording, but this happens to be one of the ones that I happen to have recorded. So if you guys want to see this in the future, just drop a comment down below or simply just like the video. If you guys enjoyed this video, and when you do, drop a like, share with a friend, sub, ring the bell, catch you on the flip side. Speaking of grinding, sir, we were talking about the doing a podcast.
It's definitely interesting. Just always seems like you got to have some sort of a direction. Seems like you got to go after a demographic.
Yeah, I'm sure there is some sort of demographic that you got to go after or something. I don't know. People, I don't know what it is, but me too. You're saying that like you've been watching a lot of like comedy podcasts and
That's
stuff.
about all I watch. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been watching. I've been getting more into fucking podcasts lately too. I've been getting. I mean, I've been in and out with watching podcasts and shit, but like as of lately, I've been watching a lot more fucking podcasts and shit. So
I started listening to them probably, I don't know, 8 years ago or so at my old job.
8 years ago?
Yeah, like
God
a long
damn.
time ago. At my old job. And it was just financial ones or science ones, stuff like that. It was just only a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I've only really been getting into them for the
well, then I
past few
completely
years.
stopped listening to them at all. Just whatever. And then when COVID hit and we worked from home,
Yeah.
I wanted something to keep on my screen, just noise. And the very first one I listened to was the Bad Friends podcast.
Yeah, just something to like keep
Because
yourself awake.
so Little Dicky just came out, that show, Dave, the Little Dicky, and I was just on YouTube, like I think I literally searched podcast on YouTube or whatever.
It was like the first thing
and
that
just
popped
scrolling
up.
through. Yeah, well, the dude that's on the show, Dave, he's a comedian, and I was like, oh, I recognize that guy from the show. Let me listen to that. And then it was Bobby Lee was on there with him. And it's their podcast. I was like, oh, okay. And then that got me into them. And then when you hit that, you get the recommended, for others.
Yeah.
And that's what I pretty much found all the ones I like.
Yeah, well, you mentioned about like getting back into it with COVID. That's when I really started watching podcasts. Was when COVID hit. So like a few years ago is when I really started watching podcasts and shit like that.
Which ones do you watch? Comedy or?
A little bit of everything.
I mean, a lot of them, like comedy-wise, kind of fall into each other. Like Flagrant and stuff like that. Joe Rogan Experience. They're all comedy-based, even though they're not just on there joking and shit like that, talking serious stuff, but they're all comedy-based.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what actually you mentioned Joe Rogan, and that's what I initially started watching for podcasts and stuff like that. And there's
Rogan's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people that can formulate their own opinions about the fucking Joe Rogan Experience and whatever, but like that's what I got started off with, and it actually like helped me get through like schooling and stuff for
Yeah, I actually just
work.
started listening to Rogan not too long ago because he wasn't on YouTube anywhere. Only YouTube stuff you can see is like 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it wasn't any updated stuff. It was pre-COVID stuff, and I really don't listen to anything pre-COVID because everything's so different now.
Yeah, and actually that's like also one of the things with like even just like the Joe Rogan podcast stuff. That's actually like I was able to not only like sit down and just like watch an entire podcast or whatever, or even part of the podcast and pick it back up later. I was actually able to like talk about those specific podcasts with like coworkers and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, I watched this one, and we'd like,
Ian's really into them.
He
I don't know if
is?
you know that.
He's
he's into the comedy ones. He's into Rogan. He's into Bad Friends and Flagrant and all that.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some sort of like podcasts out there. There's probably about a bunch of different people out there that do
Like literally right now on my other screen, I have The Fighter and the Kid on my other screen right now.
I don't even know who that is.
It's just a pod. It's really good. They talk about different stuff. They're both comedians. They're into UFC a lot, so they talk a lot about UFC. And the one was in the UFC. And then Brian Callen's just a really old school actor comedian. He's really funny.
Yeah,
And
there's
just all different stuff. They do the fight companion with Rogan for the UFC fights. They do that with him.
right, like the announcing stuff, or just what?
I think they just have a pod for it, like pre-gaming it. If you like Rogan, you like the Protect Our Parks he does. You seen those?
Maybe I don't exactly remember.
I got Ari Shafir, Shane Gillis, Mark Norman, and Joe Rogan. It's Joe Rogan's podcast. They just call it Protect Our Parks or whatever. And it's them four together, and those are fucking hilarious. Those are great episodes.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few other podcasts I've watched since I really started watching podcasts and stuff like that. There's one that was for like gaming and stuff. A bunch of different gamers that I've watched for fucking literally watched for fucking years. Like, I don't know how knowledgeable you are on like some of the older YouTube gamers.
Like Zero.
I mean, I don't know who that is. I don't know who Zero is.
No, I'm my knowledge is
your knowledge on I thought that was
I
like
don't know how much you watch. I'm like Zero.
I thought
that sounds like it could be a gamer name there.
Yeah, I thought that was like somebody's YouTube channel. Like, oh yeah, he goes by the name of Zero. Okay, cool. That's
he's pretty cool.
But yeah, there was like along with like the Joe Rogan experience when I first started watching podcasts and stuff like that. It was it's called the Wildcast. It's one of the OG YouTubers that I've been watching for literally like 10 years or some shit like that, right? Wildcat is the name of the guy, like the YouTube guy that actually like does that shit. It's been a while since he's uploaded one. That was one I pretty much watched every single fucking episode of those. Lately though, but since I've gotten back into it, it's been actually one of them is from an actor. Now, I'm sure you probably know. He literally did like the Punisher series for Netflix.
Oh,
you know,
John Bernthal.
Yeah. He's
what is that? The real dudes or God? What is it?
The real ones.
Yeah, the real ones. Yep.
Yeah,
I've never watched it. I've seen a lot of the Shia LaBeouf interview clips and stuff from it.
Yeah, I've seen clips of it, and like I started watching the one with Shia LaBeouf, and there's he has some sort of like some content on some of his podcasts on YouTube and stuff like that. By the way, I don't know what you think about John Bernthal. I think he's actually a pretty solid actor.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and that like
I never watched The Punisher.
Oh,
I don't like any of those shows, but Walking Dead and shit like that.
Yeah, he was actually in The Walking Dead.
The Bear. Yeah. He's in The Bear.
Yeah. And then let's see. There's also I've watched one of the car guys.
There was one that keeps getting recommended to me on TikTok that I haven't watched yet. Circle of Drift. I just haven't watched that one. Just I guess Drift boys get in and talk about shit in the community and drifting and shit like that, or stories.
Yeah, I've been there's actually I really only watched one of Cooper Baghetti, or you know him, right? He used to work with Cletus.
I've only watched like maybe 2 episodes of Cletus.
Yeah, well, and he was Cooper Baghetti used to work with Cletus and I think a little bit of 1320. So yeah, I've just been watching some. Again, I've been getting back into podcasts lately. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it.
All right, well, you make a small list for me, and I'll make a small list for you. I'll text it to you. Text it to me.
All right.
Recommendations.
Well, and like you were saying,
majority of mine will be comedy, like I said.
Yeah.
And it's not comedy like you're not watching fucking stand up. It's just they go in and have conversations with different people and stuff like that. And it's like you gotta know this one, Theo Vaughn.
Might have heard of him.
All right, redneck guy with a mullet. Super cool.
Sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. If you see him, you will know you've seen him. You'll recognize him. But he has just guests from like everywhere on. Super good interviews. He just got he put an interview with Roseanne on there. You know who Roseanne is? Old show. Used to be on Nick at Night and stuff like that. Roseanne Barr, she's a comedian.
No.
You'd know her if you seen her.
Probably, we'll see.
But she made some jokes about Jews or something like that on there.
Oh.
So, and completely out of context, she was joking. She was being sarcastic. But YouTube took that podcast, took him off and suspended him for like a week and everything off of there. So he posted on Twitter, and Elon retweeted it, and now it's the podcast with the most views in history. Now.
Jesus Christ.
Because Elon and this was like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Yeah, Elon retweeted it. He says, content should live here or something like that. We don't ban stuff. And he retweeted or something like that. He said comedy has a home here. That's what he said.
Yeah.
And retweeted it, and it had like 89 million views or something.
Jeez. I mean,
by the time it was in like 2 days, it had 89 million.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the tricky part about this whole like content creation, and not even just like making gaming videos or anything like that. Even like that podcasts. It's like you got to be careful with what you say, man. Like there's certain things that it's like, oh, that's too much of a controversial subject. We're gonna take it down and ban get this guy
you
and all this extra stuff. Shit. Yeah, this is even though I'm not like a big like even me just starting out with like 43, 44 subscribers or whatever. It's just like even certain things that we say. It's like we got to be careful of what we say.
Straight to jail.
Some of the things that, not to name any names or of anybody that would say anything, but it's like we got to be fucking careful of what we say.
Does the name start with an Ian?
Maybe. But it's like the whole
that's why you gotta
be careful.
Work on the editing and shit like that.
Yeah.
Make sure you go through with a fine tooth comb.
Yeah, I'm getting better at it, and it's like there's like a lot of shit I want to do with the whole content creation. Even just like starting a podcast. Eventually, I'd like to. I think it's probably a good idea once I get like a solid following or whatever, and like actually get monetized, because I'm putting some money into actually doing this stuff, and I'd like to be able to get a return out of it. Eventually, I'd like to, start a podcast with the boys, with you guys.
It'd be fun for sure. Like, there's so many different things out there. I don't know if you've heard of the Dudesy podcast or not. So
I think I've heard of that one before.
It's Will Sasso, who he was on Mad TV, comedian, and another guy. I don't know who the other guy is, but their whole premise is pure AI. The AI tells them the jokes, not jokes, but tells them the topics to talk about and everything. They just like, Dudesy, what should this podcast be about? That's just what they nicknamed the AI. It gives them prompts, it gives them subject matter, it gives them the newest details of what's happened this week they should talk about, hot topics and stuff like that. Yeah. And the AI controls 100% of it.
Yeah.
And they're like, they'll get done with a subject, they think they finished talking about it. Okay, what's next? And then AI says, here, talk about this now.
Yep.
And that's literally 100% of their content.
Yeah, we could do that eventually, but also like I texted you earlier, and about the whole like topic conversation of what we would do during the podcast. It'd just be like, oh yeah, well, that's when we can bring in other people and talk about different things. Like you personally, you can know more about, like, let's say trading and stuff, right? And I know more about like content creation or whatever, or let's say more about like the biggest.
He knows more about building the same set of wheels for 3 years.
And then we could all,
So just going based off what you're saying there, it would be more in the Rogan style, in the Flagrant style kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's going
to on anything. Yeah, but we just like to talk about different things, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of brainstorming and R&D to get something like that set up, and of course a lot of time and money, unfortunately. But
so my absolute favorite podcast is almost exactly what you're talking about, and you'll have to watch a couple episodes maybe tonight or tomorrow or something like that. It's called Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. It is by far my favorite podcast, and it's two fucking dudes with guests. They'll have guests, and it's one camera, and that's it. There's not 20 fucking different camera angles and stuff like that, cuts and flagrant. They just hit record, it runs. The only cuts are basically ads in between or whatever, when they'll do a couple ad reads or something, and that's it. It's one camera, and everybody that comes on there is just amazed, like, oh, it's just one camera? You just have one camera? Like, yeah, that's it. And it is the highest paid Patreon on Patreon. It's the biggest. It's the biggest in the world. So it's the largest, and they have like God, I think it was like 50 or 60,000 monthly subscribers that pay them each month to listen to the podcast.
Really?
At $5.99 a month times 50K,
Shit,
50 or 60K.
That's not bad. I'm sure.
And they're just comics. They're just run-of-the-mill comics.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of ways that we can get paid off of doing something like that. It's just gonna.
But they are the funniest motherfuckers. They are good. It'll take you, because you gotta figure out someone's personality, kind of.
Yeah.
So it'll probably take you 2 or 3 podcasts to really get a feel for the guys. But they are just, the way they talk to each other is how we talk. Like the same way. We'll just fucking be random as shit and just say crazy things, and just whatever fucking meme we seen that day, we'll just keep repeating it. Like that's the same thing they do. Just whatever.
When you say how we
like CD's nuts, like you know what I'm talking about. We'll say that tonight for sure because me and you seen that today. So that's the same thing they'll do. They'll just say shit like, they were on the okay, let's go. They were on that for a minute, and they just every time they fucking say something, okay, what we got next? Okay, let's go, and they would just keep saying it, and it was fucking great. So funny.